You are tuned to 105.5 FM, 1320 AM, cable TV, channel 25, and worldwide we're at country.am. You can also find us on the Simple Radio app and the TuneIn app on your smartphone, or if you have an Amazon Echo or Dot, all you have to do is say, Alexa, play WKRK. And it's 11:07, and we have Sheriff Palmer in the studio with us, and you can also watch us on Facebook Live right now. We are live on the WKRK Facebook page, and the camera's going to stay on Derek the whole time.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You don't want to break your camera.
Don't want to break the camera. Yes. You have a tendency of doing that.
For some reason, I do.
For some
I'm
reason.
not sure why.
Yeah, it's either in your car broken or here in the studio you break
Right.
it. But, oh, well, we forgive. Yes. How are you doing today, Sheriff?
I'm doing well. It's been busy. I'm trying to log onto my phone here so I can see if people bring in.
I'm glad you said that because I need to share this on my page.
Yeah, I'm going to say if people, that's maybe why I didn't get a notification, because you didn't invite me.
That's right. Let's see, share.
But yeah, it's been busy. It's been kind of hectic around the office for the last week or so. And one thing I want to mention real quick before we get started is there's still people calling in about firewood, things at the sheriff's office. Just so that people understand, I think I mentioned this a week or two ago, but we are out of dry firewood. Everything that we have is green. And so I heard the inmates on the hill today working at some firewood and trying to get some loads out for that. So, but it's green firewood. So if we do bring you some, we don't care to bring you some, but you probably need to have some dry to mix with it.
Right.
It gets awful hot when you get that green wood going, and that's all you burn. So just so people know that. Another thing I want to mention too is we've had several people call the sheriff's office about oil, about needing oil for their heaters and in their oil tanks and stuff. We don't provide oil at the sheriff's office. All we provide is the firewood there for the inmate work crew. If you're needing oil, you'll need to contact the Department of Social Services, where they have their energy assistance program there, and they can help you with that out there if you qualify for that service. And but yeah, we've had several people call and inquire about that lately, and unfortunately, we just don't do that.
All right. What else is going on at the sheriff's office? I do have one question. You may not be able to answer, but someone had reported that they saw about 6 sheriff's cars with blue lights headed toward Andrews last night.
Yeah, that was a lot. I got a lot of calls about that myself. We had a report last night of a person, and just out of respect for the family, I don't want to mention names or anything, but we had a report last night of a person that actually called in to 911. Telling the dispatchers they were going to commit suicide. They had even given their last will and testament over the phone to the dispatchers of who they wanted to have what, and they were armed, and they were indecisive, from my understanding, as to whether they were going to. I think they're pretty adamant they were going to take their own life, but I think the concern was that they may force officers into doing that for them. So we had several officers responding to that area, trying to find the person and trying to negotiate with them and trying to get them not to commit suicide. But prior to the officer's arrival, the person did in fact commit suicide, and so it was one of those things that we were trying to send several officers to that area, not knowing what the person's mentality was or what they were capable of doing. So with the school shootings that we've had and the different things that's been going on. We just want to respond out of abundance of caution to that.
As you mentioned, the school shooting, another tragedy happened this week, and these are happening way too often.
They are.
And there was a threat over in Macon County as well, just what a neighboring county does, and they had arrested 2 school-age children. What can be done to lessen this? And I realize that the schools are just easy targets for people because the kids in there, they're unarmed.
Well, the main thing is, and it always has been an issue, and we hope to rectify it in some manner, but there's always warning signs that people don't heed. And so what we're trying to get people to understand, especially children within school, and to understand that when you have schoolmates or people to make threats and to say things such as they want to kill people or shoot the school up or blow the school up or making those kind of threats, those are all things that needs to be reported to school officials and to law enforcement so that we can look into and to verify whether it's a credible threat or not. But so many times after an event is over with, we find the Facebook post and the Instagrams and the other kids that said, well, they made threats last year, or this is what's happened, in the past at school. They kind of went unreported. And so we just want to make sure that whenever there is a threat, we want to take it seriously. I remember one time when I was driving a school bus for the school, we had a student that was on the bus that made a vague comment about he was going to bring a gun and shoot everybody on the bus. We took that very seriously, and we dealt with that, and there was a repercussion for that. That was several years ago. But there were some upset parents and people that we took it so seriously, and that he just made a statement, didn't mean it, kind of thing. But unfortunately, we live in a world where you can't make those kind of statements. It's kind of like being in an airport. You can't talk about blowing up a plane in an airport. People are just not going to ignore those kind of statements.
Yeah, so, it's something nobody. I mean, it's not funny. I mean,
Right.
why make a statement like that?
Right. And and the thing about this too, when you have people that make those kind of statements, it's an indicator that there's something else going on a little deeper within that person. Those are just not statements that you make just because you're frustrated or random. Those are things that you've at least thought about it, or you wouldn't have made that statement if you hadn't thought about it.
Yeah,
So,
and the FBI apparently didn't catch the one in Florida. He had made a threat online prior to that,
Right.
and that went undetected or whatever. So, do we have enough security in our school systems? Or how do we?
well, you can never have enough. I mean, there's no matter what you do, you can't have enough to prevent anything and everything from happening. It's just like with your office building or my office building or anywhere. I mean, we have locked doors at the sheriff's office. We have avenues to keep people there safe, key card access, and those kind of things. But several of our doors are glass doors. So
Right.
if anybody are just determined to want to come in, they're going to come in.
Right.
The bad things are going to happen. So anything short of living in a steel vault with armed guards all around you, and the military standing outside with all kind of equipment and weapons,
And that's just
you're
not
not going to
feasible.
prevent it.
Yeah.
Those things you're just not going to prevent. One of the things that I think that as a nation that we need to really look at when it comes to school shootings and workplace violence and those type of things is not just the issue of guns and banning of guns and restrictions and access and all those kind of things, but we need to take a very serious look at the mental health and what's going on there, and how do we protect ourselves against people that's going through mental health crisis. I know that one of the things that we deal with a lot with the sheriff's office is voluntary commitments, where we actually have judicial orders to take people against their will and have them committed into a mental facility or be evaluated. But one of the things, and the judicial officials are quick to tell you about this, and they are exactly 100% correct, it's the most intrusive, invasive thing you can do to a person, because you're not accusing them of a crime. You're not accusing them of violating the law in any way. So you're actually holding someone against their will. You're restricting their movements. You're not violating, but you're restricting their civil rights of being free to move about when you're not accusing them of doing anything wrong.
Right.
And so it's one of the most invasive things you can do. So that's kind of where the balance is that we've got to try to figure out as a nation, is these people who are suffering through mental illness and are going through these things, how do we deal with them in such a way that we're keeping our community safe, but we're not just out here just snatching people off the street and violating their rights that have not commit crimes, that have not done anything to warrant being incarcerated. So it's a very delicate balancing act there with
Right.
that. And the other thing I think that we need to really address as society is just our societal decay, our decline in morality, our decline in right and wrong, our decline in how we treat each other and human beings. And one of the things is about our Christian belief and our mentality about that is that when we have a religious background and use those morality principles, then that kind of helps with societal issues. But when we go away from that and we go away from religion and go away from the things, what standard do we use as far as right and wrong? So if you have someone who does not believe in God, who does not believe in a hereafter, does not believe in religion in any sort of way, then what is to them right and wrong? There is no standard to measure by. And so that's why we start seeing people go off this decline, because they don't have a moral compass to go by. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can talk about, from video games to desensitizing. I mean, there's just a million things to look at when addressing this issue, and unfortunately, there is not a easy answer. I mean, if we go to this thing that we ban guns and take everyone's weapon in the United States and take everything away from them, and there's no guns available, you're still not going to prevent someone from killing somebody else. I mean, they can knives and swords and bow and arrows and cars and bombs and everything else that people can do. So until we address the mental issues and societal issues, I'm afraid that nothing we do is going to help or change that.
I do want to clear up a rumor. I sent you a text earlier this week. There was rumors circulating like wildfire that a teacher had been arrested and carried out with handcuffs, and they were very specific, giving names, but
that was not true.
That was not true. So we want to clarify that, because people's names can get ruined.
Well, a couple of things I want to say about this real quick is, because as we expected and the SBI expected, there seems to be polarization in the community with the recent arrest of one of our local principals. And we certainly understand that and acknowledge that. But you also have to understand and acknowledge that the State Bureau of Investigations is not going to come into our community and indict someone who is well known and well liked within the community without having valid reason to do so.
Right.
The other thing is that this whole process where this teacher was arrested was presented to a Cherokee County grand jury of 16 people. And the evidence was presented to those people, and those people decided that there was enough evidence for indictment and for them to be charged.
That was the principal, correct?
Right.
Okay.
So what people need to understand is that we don't have personal bias or personal issues into this as to going out and swearing a warrant out to a magistrate and having someone arrested. This was presented to a grand jury with evidence, and the grand jury decided that this person, the principal, should have been arrested. So this is a case, like I say, that has been managed by the State Bureau of Investigations. We are assisting them in that, but also I want to understand and acknowledge that one of the reasons that we invited the State Bureau of Investigations to come in to look into this, not only my office but also the district attorney's office, is because with Principal Graham and some of these other teachers that's facing some of these rumors and accusations out here, is I've worked with them for years. And my chief deputy has worked with them, and several of our officers and staff at the sheriff's office has worked with these people. And so it ensures that we don't have a personal bias, that we don't ignore things because we're friends with someone, or that we don't prosecute someone because we don't like someone, you know. And so it just ensures that an integrity of justice to bring someone else in to look at these things. And so I want to make sure that people understand that and know that. And honestly, and I mean, I'm almost in tears when I'm talking about this for the fact of my heart does break, and my heart breaks for our community, and it breaks for Mr. Graham that was accused, and it breaks for just everyone that's involved in this. It breaks for our students, you know, that's at school, and victims that come out that says things have happened to them. You know, my heart breaks for everyone, because these are things that we don't want to deal with. These are things that we don't want to look at, and we hope that never happens in our community. But unfortunately, this has surfaced, and we have to deal with it accordingly. And I know from Dr. Conley, and I know from the school system, that their heart's breaking also with this, and it's not an easy thing to go through. It's not an easy thing to deal with. But you know, as when I was elected as sheriff, one of the things I had to put my hand to the Bible to and raise my hand to was that I would swear to uphold the laws, and I would swear to do things lawfully and do things without bias. And so we have to uphold that and do that. And that's not just a swear to the citizens, but it's also a swear to God Almighty. And so we have to do what we swore that we would do.
All right. Yeah. For students or anybody who may have had inappropriate conduct by an adult, what's the proper way to report that?
Well, one of the things that needs to be done is that they need to, first of all, talk to a parent or an adult that they trust. and talk to them about the situation that's going on. One thing I encourage adults not to do, though, is they don't need to launch into an investigation and start questioning the kids about things that they report. Sometimes when you question those kids, it can taint their testimony. It can taint some of the things they say. And so it's important that once those things are reported, that those things get reported back to the appropriate law enforcement officials, whether it's in city limits of towns, whether it's to town officials, whether it's to the sheriff's office in the county or the State Bureau of Investigations or Highway Patrol or anybody out there that's law enforcement, that they would respond. They would tell these things to, and so the appropriate law enforcement response can be put out. Things that's happening, like I say, within the school system, we're having a lot of rumors that's going on now. I've actually been getting calls from news media about some of these other teachers and rumors that's going out about these teachers, and like I say, these specific things that's been put out. But one thing I relayed back to the media that I want to relate to the people out here also is that we are not in the business of ruining people's reputations over a rumor.
Right.
And that we're not in the business of putting information out there of investigations that we're doing based on a rumor. So at the appropriate time, if there is anything that comes out further than this, if there are any other teachers that are doing anything inappropriate, and if those teachers are charged at some point in time, then we will do a press release on that also, and we'll put that information out there. But I think it's important right now not to spread rumors and say things when you don't know what you're talking about or you don't know what's really happening out there. Now, there's nothing wrong with when you hear that rumor of a teacher and a student and those type of things, of reporting that back to law enforcement and saying, here, this rumor is going around, people are talking, I'm giving it to you to investigate. There's nothing wrong with that. But when we're sitting at the barbershop talking about it, or at the beauty parlor talking about it, or down in the office building, and we're talking about all these people and things that people have done, it's not very good to spread these rumors without proof that the rumors are true. And even if you do have proof, one of the things my mom and dad used to say is, even though it may be true, you still don't have to talk about it, and you still don't have to put it out there. So we need to be careful about these things, because people's careers are on the line, reputations are on the line. And the fact of the matter is, even with Principal Graham, the fact of the matter is, if victims come by today and said, I lied about the whole thing, these are not true, we made it up, unfortunately, he's in a position now, just based on rumor and based on the arrest and based on these things, that his life will never be the same again. And so we need to understand that. And that's why I want to let people understand and know that it is that we're not in the business of going out and just arresting prominent people without due cause of that.
And one other issue I've noticed that's getting worse and worse with social media is that when we issue these press releases, people do play judge and jury underneath there, and they'll say things and they'll defend both sides. And some of them, the comments on there would make a victim be afraid to come forward because of the things. And this happens on our page too. There's
well, the thing about it is, and this is what I try to get people also to understand about this, is put it from the potential victim's point of view and their family's point of view. If how would people feel if their child or grandchild came to the sheriff's office and made a report that Tim Radford did something inappropriate to them and touched them in a way, or did something in a way that was inappropriate sexually, and as sheriff, I looked at them and said, I've known Tim for years. He's a good guy. He would never do anything like that. So we're just not even going to look into it. We're not even going to investigate it.
Right.
How would that make you feel as a victim or as a family? I don't think you would walk away feeling very good about that and feeling very trusting in the sheriff's office or law enforcement in general. And so when these reports come down, they have to be looked into. They have to be investigated. And so people understand this. Over the years, there has been things that even as law enforcement officers that we get accused of, whether it be stealing or whether it be brutality or whether it be racial profiling or whatever it may be, those are things that law enforcement gets accused of over the years from time to time. We have to go through the same process. We have to be investigated just like anybody else is investigated. And so a lot of times the State Bureau of Investigations will come out on a report. They'll look at officers, they'll look at us and say, hey, we've got this report, we need to do some interviews, polygraphs, all those type of things. And so a lot of times we have to go through the same process to either show that we are guilty of something or not guilty of something, So just to understand that this is a process that you go through. But unfortunately I don't know if that's the right terminology or not, but with the process, you have to follow the evidence wherever the evidence goes, and whatever you have in front of you. And there's a procedure you have to follow to be fair to everyone, and to be fair to everyone that's accused of crimes, and not just select those who you choose to investigate and who you choose not to investigate. So I hope that people understand that, and I hope that registers with people that, that even though it is a job to do, that we are still concerned about people, and we're concerned not only with the victims, we are concerned people we accuse. And when I was a field training officer for years, and when I trained officers, I would always tell them, you never, ever make any kind of arrest without knowing the facts and knowing that there is probable cause there for the arrest and the person probably did it. Especially when you come into crimes of sex crimes and things of that nature, because of this very fact of you can ruin someone's life that could be innocent. So if you don't do that in a procedural way and do it the right way and treat everybody fairly, you could potentially ruin someone's life who's innocent. So I just want people to understand that we don't just haphazardly go out and do things like this. That again, this whole thing, even with the principal, is not an investigation that we're doing at the sheriff's office, but it's an SBI investigation that we're helping them with some legwork and stuff on for that. So I don't know how much clearer I can make it. It may be clear as mud now. I'm not sure, but that's just kind of some things I wanted to say about that.
All right. So the one confirmed arrest is the principal.
Right.
The rumors about the other teachers, because I've heard two different teachers' names.
Right.
Those are rumors. And do you think those were started just to try to damage them?
Well, it's hard to say, and like I say, we don't know how it'll turn out, and we don't know how these rumors will turn out. It could very well. With the rumors that's out there, you could very well find evidence that the teacher did something wrong, or they acted inappropriately, or whatever it may be. But you may very well at the end of it find the teacher absolutely did nothing wrong, So those things that's out there, it's hard to say one way or another until the investigation is complete, until it's over with. But I will tell you this, that we are living in harder and harder times where people are convicted before they ever go to court, and they're tried by the jury of public opinion out there, before that they ever make it to a court setting. And it is important to make sure that everyone understands that in the United States of America, you are innocent until you're proven guilty in a court of law. It doesn't matter what the sheriff says. It doesn't matter what the investigators say. It doesn't matter what's going on. You are innocent until you're convicted by a court of law. And then once you're convicted, then you're guilty of a crime.
And I think it's important as a media outlet that we actually do put that disclaimer on every press release, because there could be mistakes.
Right.
And we'd love to be able to clear names if we anytime possible. But
and like I say, this is tough on everybody.
It is.
This is tough on everybody involved in this. But like I say, we just want to make sure that everyone is treated fairly and treated with respect and dignity.
All right. And another thing that we get a lot of is people complaining about low bails. We've talked about this before, but the bond or the bail.
Oh, yeah.
That's not for punishment.
No.
That is just to make sure that they stay.
Right.
They're going to show up for court date, because I think everybody will look at a low bail and think, they're just letting him get out free. But
well, the thing about it is, if you have someone who has a lot of ties to the community, they have homes here, they have business here, they grew up here, have family here, kids here, those type of things. Those people are a very low risk of fleeing, of moving outside the state, leaving the country, those type of things. And so the magistrates have to take that in consideration when they set those bonds. And so if it's someone who has a lot of ties to the community and those type of things, you'll typically see those lower bonds set. And it's not because they're my buddy or they're favorites or anything like that. It's because the likelihood of them showing up for court is very good,
What happens to the bail money once they do show up for court? What happens?
It goes back to the person that bailed them out, that bonded them out.
Okay.
Like a lot of people may put their property up for bond. And so that property is just kind of in limbo until they do show up for court. And then once they show up for court, then it's cleared off the books.
So it's basically just collateral then.
Right, it is. It's basically collateral. And then, like I say, if you put up, say, a monetary bond, you put up cash, and the person don't show up, then that bond is transferred into the clerk's office to the system there, to where it goes. I think it goes to the school board or school system or something. I believe that's where it goes to.
Okay. And if they do show up, they just get their money back.
Right. Yeah. And as long as people show up for court, then nobody loses anything. You get your money back for that.
All right. Well, I just wanted to touch on that because a lot of people still say.
Now, if you do a bail bondsman, you lose that money that you paid to a bondsman.
Okay.
Because the bondsman is putting his money up for
Gotcha.
the bond. So you're paying him to put his money up. So if you give a bondsman $150 or whatever it may be to get him to put his money up, you've just lost your money, whether they show up for court or whether they don't, because that's what he does for a living.
Okay. I can see that being a pretty good business.
Yeah, he can. He can be very profitable.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I see our time is dwindling down.
Man, that went by quick.
It did go by fast. Anything else you want to talk about or touch on before we?
No, I just want to say one more time, though, before we go, about the shootings and things down there in Florida and what's going on in our country. There is no easy solution. There is no easy answer to all this, but we do want to just offer our prayers and our condolences up to those victims down there and the people involved in that. And sometimes the things that we tend to forget, whether it's Sutherland Springs, Texas, church shooting, or whether it's school shootings or whatever it may be down here in Florida, we tend to forget those survivors that are left behind. We pray for not just the victims and their families, but think about the kids who were at school that day. Think about the ones who witnessed and saw what happened.
Traumatized for life.
Right, that even though they may not be a personal victim as far as lost a loved one or a family member, but they need our prayers and things too, and they need encouragement. And so we just want to just think about those people and spend a moment or two in prayer for them.
I try to put myself in that situation. What if I were there in that day? I don't know how I'd respond.
Right.
We're really not prepared for things like that.
We're not. And it's one of those things that even in law enforcement, we train and we train and we train, and hopefully we have a reaction to when things happen that's kind of a program, because it's muscle memory, and when we react to those things. But I can tell you honestly, like, for example, at church one Sunday, I was there. I came in. I take that back. I think it was a Wednesday. I came back one Wednesday night and still had my uniform on, my gun, and all those kind of things. And so I was standing up front talking to the pastor, and the sound system amp blew, and it made just a loud pop, just pow, in the church, which sounded like a gunshot. And everybody kind of jumped and turned and looked. But I remember just standing there, just kind of staring, like, okay, where did that come from? What is it? Trying to evaluate the situation.
Were you reaching for your gun?
I did, but I didn't really run or hide or jump or pull my gun or anything like that. And it kind of reminded me that in a real event, that there's going to be a few seconds there of reaction time, of just trying to figure out what's going on and how to properly react to it. So we hope that we train for that, but we also know that that no amount of training you do is going to prevent everything from happening. So we don't want to live scared. We don't want to live in a nation that we're afraid to go to the store, afraid to do anything. But we want to be prepared, and we want to be trained, and we want to evaluate our surroundings around us and look what's going on.
And you've had recent trainings, like simulations of school.
We have, yeah.
And
we did one right before the school year started. We did it out at Ranger School. It was full scale with law enforcement response and emergency services and all those kind of things as responding to a school shooting. We will do one typically in the spring, and then we'll do another one typically next year before school starts. So we try to do at least 2 a year. Sometimes we get 3 a year if we can get one in the summer. So,
would something like a simulation, would that be something that would be appropriate for filming?
Sure.
To be there and let the community see what's involved?
Right. We don't want to film every single thing we do, because if you've got somebody with bad guys out there watching it, you don't want them to learn all your tactics and the way you respond to everything. But as far as coming and viewing and having viewing stations and things of that nature, we certainly encourage that for people to come out and do that. One other thing, too, is a lot of times we shoot either simulated bullets, whether it be rubber bullets or paint bullets. In our schools and office buildings, we try to use the pellet bullets so it don't leave marks on the wall and those kind of things. But again, we don't want a lot of people running around when that kind of stuff's happening, because we don't want someone to get an eye put out or to fall down or someone run over them or something like that, So, but we do typically try to set up viewing stations for any officials or news media or anybody that wants to come in to view that.
Next time you do that, I'd like to be a part of that.
Very good. We most certainly will. We shouldn't be doing one for too long.
All right. Sheriff, thank you very much for being with us today, and we look forward to doing it again next week.
Thank you.
Right here on WKRK. Folks on Facebook, thank you very much. I'm going to end that broadcast, and then we will end our radio broadcast, and I'm about to lose my voice here. All right, so the Facebook is ended. Now let's end the radio part.